Femi arrived home some minutes past 7 p.m., utterly drained from a grueling day at the office. The weight of his position, demanding colleagues, and unrelenting pressure bore heavily on him. All he wanted was to collapse into the comfort of his home, perhaps have a quiet dinner, and retire for the night. However, the icy look from his wife, Kenny, as he stepped through the door shattered that fragile hope. For a moment, he debated whether to ask for dinner or skip the ordeal altogether by heading straight to bed. He knew, though, that either choice would likely provoke an argument. Summoning his courage, he asked softly, "Hey, babe, can I please have my dinner?" Kenny turned to him with a glare so sharp it could pierce steel. "I think you should go back to that useless girlfriend's house you're coming from," she spat, her voice laced with venom. "Since the two of you have decided to be unfortunate." The words stung. Femi took a deep breath, biting back his frustration. Deciding it was best to avoid a confrontation, he turned toward the bedroom, resigned to sleeping on an empty stomach. But Kenny was not done. Blocking his path, she raised her voice, shouting, "I knew it! She already cooked for you, didn't she? And you're just asking me for food to fulfill all righteousness. Thank God I didn't waste my time cooking tonight. Honestly, I don't even know how I ended up marrying someone like you. Ah, my God will judge between me and you, Femi. What exactly have I done to deserve this wicked act from you?" Femi stood still, her words washing over him like a storm. He looked at her, trying to reconcile this angry, bitter woman with the kind and loving partner he had married. He knew their struggles, especially the years of trying unsuccessfully for a child, had taken a toll on both of them. But how had it come to this? He recalled her decision 2 years ago to leave her job and focus on having children. He hadn't agreed initially, fearing it would strip her of a sense of purpose and independence. Yet, for the sake of peace, he had relented. Now the weight of their shared pain loomed like a shadow over their home, threatening to consume them both. It hadn't always been like this. Back in 2017, Femi had attended a work retreat involving his company and a sister firm. As part of the program, employees in similar roles were paired to exchange strategies and insights. Femi had been paired with Kenny. From the moment they met, their connection had been magnetic. They spent the day talking about everything but work, their laughter and shared glances forming an unspoken bond. By the last day of the retreat, Femi knew he couldn't let her slip away. As they waited for the bus to the airport, he approached her. "Hi, Miss Kenny. I hope you wouldn't mind me taking you out for lunch after this. We didn't get a chance to properly talk about work, and I think I could learn a lot from you." Kenny studied him, her eyes narrowing slightly before she reached into her bag and handed him her business card. "I usually don't do this," she admitted. "I hate mixing business with pleasure, but I'll listen to my spirit this time. Don't make me regret it." Femi's grin stretched from ear to ear. "My angels must be working overtime. Don't worry, you won't regret it. That's a promise." She smiled briefly before masking her expression. "Go catch your bus before you miss it and have to trek to the airport," she teased. Femi raised his hands in mock surrender, winked, and walked away. That night, he called her as soon as he got home. What was meant to be a quick exchange of contact information turned into a 3-hour conversation. Their connection deepened over the following weeks, culminating in their first lunch date. Femi knew almost immediately that Kenny was someone special. Her intelligence, poise, and the way she laughed captivated him. 3 months into their friendship, he proposed, and though she thought it was fast, she couldn't deny her feelings for him. They got married barely 6 months after that, and everything was going smoothly until 4 to 5 years down the line, Kenny realized she hasn't even missed her period. Not even for once since she got married. At first, she wasn't bothered since they both decided to not have kids till after a year of marriage. The second year came and went without any sign of pregnancy, and Kenny started to grow anxious. Femi, ever the optimist, would often reassure her, saying, "When it's time, it will happen. Let's not stress about it." But Kenny's anxiety only deepened as the third year rolled by without a single positive test. She suggested they see a specialist, and though Femi initially resisted, he eventually agreed. After months of tests and consultations, the doctors could not find anything conclusive. Frustration began to seep into their once-perfect marriage. Kenny, feeling increasingly inadequate, blamed herself. She began to distance herself emotionally from Femi, thinking she was sparing him the burden of her pain. When she decided to quit her job to focus on having kids, Femi was hesitant but agreed to support her decision. Yet as time passed, the house that once felt like a haven of love became a silent battlefield. Kenny grew resentful, interpreting Femi's calm demeanour as indifference to their struggle. Femi, on the other hand, felt helpless and increasingly shut out. Femi sighed as Kenny's accusations echoed through the house. He wanted to yell to defend himself, to remind her that he had always been faithful and supportive. But he knew it would only escalate things. Instead, he gently took her hand even as she tried to pull away. "Kenny," he said softly, "I know you're hurting. I know this hasn't been easy for either of us, but I love you, and I've always loved you. Please, can we just talk?" Kenny froze, her anger momentarily replaced by confusion. Femi's calmness disarmed her, and tears began streaming down her face. "Talk about what, Femi? How I've failed you. How I've turned into this bitter woman you probably regret marrying." Femi stepped closer and held her face in his hands. "You haven't failed me, Kenny. You're the love of my life. I don't care how long it takes, or even if we never have children. What matters to me is you. Us. Please don't push me away." His words broke down the walls Kenny had built around herself. She sobbed uncontrollably as Femi pulled her into his arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered through her tears. "I'm so sorry for everything. I don't know how to handle this anymore." Femi held her tighter. "We'll handle it together. You don't have to go through this alone." Over the next few weeks, they began to rebuild their relationship. They started going on date nights again, laughing and rediscovering the bond that brought them together in the first place. They also sought counselling to address the strain their struggles had placed on their marriage. One evening, after a particularly heartfelt session, Kenny turned to Femi as they sat on the couch. "You know," she said with a small smile, "I think I want to go back to work. I miss feeling like myself again." Femi grinned. "I think that's a great idea, but don't forget to save some time for me, Mrs. He winked. Months later, during a routine visit to the doctor for an unrelated issue, Kenny was shocked to learn she was pregnant. When she told Femi, he lifted her off her feet, spinning her around the living room in sheer joy. Their journey wasn't perfect, but they faced every challenge together, their love growing stronger with each passing day. In the end, it wasn't just the child they had long prayed for that brought them happiness. It was rediscovering the love and partnership that had always been there. And so Femi and Kenny lived happily ever after, proving that love, patience, and understanding could weather any storm.